Hang on, guys. Something's not right here. Let me see if I can fix it. Okay. This is Moshe coming to you from Israel and Galilee, where I've lived for many years. On the 29th of June, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're in our weather relief period, thank the Lord. We're now at 81 degrees, high 92. That's relief, believe me. It's relief. Tomorrow we go down to 91, Saturday 90, Sunday 90, Monday 90, Tuesday 90, then Wednesday 89, Thursday 87, 88, and all this. So 90, 91, 92 is a relief for us. Because you really just have to, it just gets kind of ugly outside from about noon till about 3:30. And then so the evenings are mild and the mornings are mild, and you can take it easy on the air conditioner. You got to run it, but you don't have to run it cold or anything. It's nice. So we'll have a break. All right. So what we're going to cover today is going to be very interesting. I'm just going to give you the basic, condensed Cliff's Notes, if you know what those are. And then we'll get into it. So Ben Gov't, who's the Minister of Security, a member of the Knesset, has said that they want to build, the right wing wants to build a temple on the Temple Mound, which is where the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. I've been up there many years ago and walked all around the whole place, and it can't be far away from the Dome of the Rock, okay? And combined with that, the red heifer, and combine that with them making the water for purification, and the ultra-Orthodox and some of the Orthodox, I guess, won't go up to the Temple Mount because they think it's the actual site of the temple, which it's not. It's about someplace 600-900 feet or so away where the Pool Sawan area is, and there's no longer a mountain there. It was disassembled by invading armies many centuries ago. And what they're at is this is the site of the Roman fort, and this is a real issue. And I'm going to do the details not in the intro when we get into it, okay? Day before yesterday, they were saying Iran would attack in 2 days. That means today. Now, there's some people like retired military and stuff like that are thinking the Iran attack may not be what everybody thinks it is. Some of the, well, I know I spoke at least, well, I listened to at least one, say that they might just attack the American and UK bases in Iraq and Syria. And this would probably be to teach America a lesson and get America to leave Iraq and Syria, and then they're free to deal with Israel as they see fit, and not just Israel. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and they can control these countries with their crazy missiles and suicide doctrines and force them to raise oil prices and cut production and break the back of basically North America, South America, Central America, Europe, parts of Asia. And then Russia and Iran would be supplying the friendly countries with all the oil they need. BRICS is going to come into play because BRICS is supposed to be going to a cyber currency for transactions amongst themselves. I don't believe BRICS is going to open up the cyber countries, the cyber currency to the public. And how they'll incorporate gold back into this, I don't know. They're probably not going to. And Russia's going to do this. And I heard the very early days of September, like the first, second, third, something like that, it's going to start. This means that oil is going to be sold not in US dollars. Two huge oil and natural gas exporters, Iran and Russia, are in BRICS. Two huge consumers of oil and natural gas are China and India, and they're in BRICS. So by destroying BRICS, America will put an end to the threat to the US dollar not being used in international transactions, specifically oil. Saudi Arabia says they're not trading with oil for US dollars and euros, but in a second that could switch. That's not a big deal. Okay? Now, you have to understand America is at war with Russia using Ukraine as a proxy. And we'll talk about Ukraine later. They just gave Russia an ultimatum to get out of Ukraine, or they were going to destroy Moscow and St. Petersburg. Imagine that. Well, accordingly, that happened. And America will, with her allies, attack Iran. That's in Bible prophecy, Jeremiah 49. Iran, Iraq, and Syria. So if they get rid of the bases in Iraq and Syria, Iran could move missiles, soldiers, tanks, whatever, by land into Iraq, into Syria, and then attack Israel. So it might make more sense for them to get rid of these bases and then go after Israel, rather than try to tangle with Israel and America at the same time. They can't get rid of Israel. Israel has no place to go. We'll get into this. This is all happening at the same time. And we're going to discuss the Muslim Shiites' doctrines about the Jews going up to the Temple Mount. Ben-Gvir is the one behind this, and he's also starting to, or he's attempting to, initiate tours for Jews on the Temple Mount as a prelude to building a synagogue there. And we'll get into this in detail. So this is something I don't think you're going to hear elsewhere. And I'm going to explain to you what the Shiite Muslims really believe about this and what the Sunni Muslims believe about this, which is different. And you'll find this interesting, especially when we combine it with the red heifers. Okay? So this could be when America turns on Israel. America's putting sanctions on the settlers that attack the Palestinians in the West Bank, which are pro-terrorists, or terrorists. And America's thinking of putting sanctions on Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who are the two members of the Knesset. Smotrich is the economics minister, and Ben-Gvir is the security minister, for them stirring the pot. And we'll go through this, okay? All right, I gave you enough of an introduction. I need to go into the live stream and make sure we got sound and picture. And I want to put a couple of fast posts up. Now, if some of you are just don't want to, put up with me while I do this, which will take a very brief period of time, then you're just going to leave, and that's it. You're free to leave. Don't wait. But I suggest you wait. It's not going to be long. Okay, we got sound and picture. Okay, I don't know what you're saying. So when you put foreign language or gibberish up, I just take it down. The children are coming in with their nasty remarks, of course. All right, I'm going to put my posts up very quickly. If I talk too much during this, I'll make typos. And the pause gives a chance for people to come in. Okay, that's done. Being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. If you're wondering, yes, I'm a Jew. Yes, I live in Israel. Okay, I'm a Levite. I'm also a Kohanim, which is descended from Aaron. All Kohanim or priests are also Levites. Okay? And if that troubles you, and you hate the Jews, just remember, Yeshua was a Jew from Judah, so he would be designated in Hebrew as Yehudi, which is the word for Jew. The king of Israel, Yeshua. The high priest in the order of Melchizedek, Yeshua. Who he refers to the believers as his brethren. So now I challenge you to come up with a scripture reasons that shows that all true believers are not in Israel. It says all Israel shall be saved. Find me a scripture that says all the churches will be saved. I'd like to see that. Can't find one. Okay, enough of that. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, so let's start with what happened what happened with the attack on Hezbollah a few days ago on the past weekend. Israel stopped by destruction 6,700 missile launchings. Hezbollah had been arranging long-range missiles, sophisticated missiles in launches all around Lebanon, and they were going to attempt to hit 11 Israeli military bases, trying to destroy our aircraft, radar, and other facilities. This was probably to pave the way for a ground invasion or something like that. And it got thwarted because we blew up all their missiles. Now, there was people talking about, no, Israel's lying, it's not what happened, and this and that. All Hezbollah wanted to do was launch a couple of Katyushas. When the long-range missiles got destroyed, they launched the Katyushas, and they hit the vacant area near Lebanon. The Katyusha-type missiles, and they got all kinds of variants, are inaccurate. They're terrorist weapons. You can't aim them, and they go 8 to 12 miles. 95% of the people living by the border in Lebanon have evacuated, and they can destroy property. why do I think this really happened? I had some doubts, but one of the guys that was talking like this, I don't want to mention names, the FBI raided his house a few weeks ago. So he is apparently a closeted Muslim. In other words, he's a Muslim but doesn't reveal it because people would take him not seriously when he talks like this. Or they suspect he's working with them or something like that. Okay? So that's pretty serious. When they raid the house, they take the computers and other material, they take it back and they analyze it and they try to see if they have a crime there or something like that. So this guy is an unreliable source, okay? There's a guy, he calls himself McGregor, I think, a colonel, a retired colonel, and he is completely anti-Israel. He says Israel controls the American Congress. What is he, nuts? What about Netanyahu delaying giving us 1,500 heavy bombs for months and other weapons for months? Israel controls them, right? What about America putting sanctions on the settlers in the West Bank? Israel controls America, right? What about Netanyahu dictating to Israel, threatening us and everything else? Yeah, Israel controls America. This whole October 7th thing, which was allowed to happen, in my opinion, by Israel, America was in on it. And the whole thing was designed to get Iran. And I'll work this through to you and I'll show you the logic behind it, okay? So we hit Hezbollah, and it was as the IDF said. And the Arab social media in many countries was making fun of Nasrallah after his speech because he was just lying like crazy. And he did manage to blow up a chicken coop and kill some poor chickens. And they made a lot of fun of him day after day in social media using chickens. So that tells me that they know Hezbollah is lying, okay? Nasrallah. Netanyahu went up to the border by Lebanon, I think, yesterday, and met with the soldiers by the border. Now, he hadn't done that in months, so that tells me that they severely disabled Hezbollah, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Netanyahu worries about his own self, believe me. Next, we are continuing to attack targets in Hezbollah every day. Okay? So if we thought Hezbollah had this might left they were going to deliver to us, we would be more conservative. We're doing targeted assassinations and getting strategic tactical targets. Okay? I assume by now Lebanon has their electricity turned back because they did get the fuel, so I would expect today or sometime today or something it'll be back on. But that's not going to deter us. The other factor is Iran keeps trying to bring advanced missiles and weapons into Lebanon, and Israel keeps thwarting it. Okay? They are sending a cargo ship to Lebanon, apparently with missiles and weapons, and it's landing in the Latakia port in Syria, which Russia has a navy base there, because they figure Israel will be rather reluctant to attack that port. But Israel will just get the missiles when they're brought someplace else. Last night we hit in Damascus another very strategic site that Iran had there. And a lot of the missiles that Iran brought into Syria through Iraq are stored in Damascus in warehouses and things like this. So that brings to mind the scripture, Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. Doesn't it bring that to mind to you? So we did do a hit last night in Syria. Right after the Hezbollah victory that Israel had, we started a big campaign in the West Bank to get rid of the terrorists over there. And we've killed some, and we've had a pretty substantial operation. We were using aircraft, drones, armor, everything, and it's probably still going on. We're also continuing to step up our aggression in with Hamas. I don't have this confirmed, but it's rumored that Sinwar is running around with something like 24 hostages that are handcuffed next to each other so they can't run away. How do you run away with a daisy chain of 24 people, probably to prevent him from being bombed. Okay. We've also been told, and again, I don't have this highly confirmed, but I think it's true, that Sinwar is walking around Gaza dressed as a woman in a hijab, so the only thing you see is a slit for the eyes. And could this be true? Yes. Terrorists do this type of thing frequently. Yes, it could be true. It's probably likely true. Does he go around like this all the time? I don't think so. Does he spend a lot of his time in the tunnels? I think so. Okay. Then on top of this, after the attack in Hezbollah, Ben-Gvir, who's a member of the Knesset and the security minister, comes out that he wants to run tours of the Temple Mound. Now, the Temple Mound is where the Dome of the Rock is and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay? It's several acres. I don't know. Maybe the area they have is 10, 15 acres or something like that. I don't know. It's a good size thing. Probably something like that. And Ben-Gvir, and it's all got a wall around it, so they consider it their sacred territory. So Ben-Gvir wants to bring tours for Jews to show them around over there. Now that's rather inflammatory. And he also wants to build a synagogue there. You heard me right. There would be a synagogue right where the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. To do that, they would have to open up a piece of land and build a wall around it, probably a 25-foot high wall that would be those heavy concrete blocks that they put together with rebar, and they sink them into the ground several feet. I imagine that's what they use. And it would make it a little bit difficult to hit it with weapons because you have to make sure you lob your artillery, mortar, or missile or rocket over the wall, and then it comes right down, and that's pretty hard shooting. So you can't come at it like this and hit the side. Not an easy thing to do. A loitering drone would do it, or a drone, so it could be attacked with a drone. However, they could stop that rather easily. I'll tell you how. They take on top of the wall, they put metal posts, maybe 1.5 inch, 2 inch solid steel that go up perhaps 25 feet, maybe more. And on top of that, they put, a heavy metal mesh thing like this. So whatever ordnance comes in will hit the metal mesh up there and detonate far enough away from the synagogue to not hurt it. Now you can also structure this with 2 or 3 layers. So in case they swarm attack and they ruin one layer, the other layers are there. You could also fill it up with 3 feet of sandbags. There's a lot of things that could be done. Okay? There's things that could be done. You could build the synagogue as a bomb shelter itself. Like the roof has 3 feet of hard reinforced concrete. All kinds of things could be done, right? You basically build a bunker on the Dome of the Rock. Okay? And it would have probably, as a normal situation, a couple of dozen Israeli troops protecting it, maybe more. Maybe they put a tank or two up there. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but or if they're going to do it. But I'm going to combine this with Bible prophecy for you and show you why I think it's a real thing. Okay? Now, Ben-Gvir recently got his police chief appointed chief of police, the guy he wanted. Ben-Gvir is in charge of the police and the border police, not the military, except he has some control over the military in the West Bank. And I'm sure the net result of this will be that the settlers in the West Bank will be able to attack the Palestinians who are Hamas, Hezbollah sympathizers and get away with it. Burn their houses, cars, throw things at them, etc. Biden administration has already put sanctions on some of these settlers because of their actions. So let's get away from America's a great friend of Israel. America's using Israel right now to get a good build-up going for an excuse to attack Iran. They use Ukraine as a proxy to attack Russia, don't they? Just like Iran uses Hezbollah or the Houthis, the same thing. Give them weapons, money, support, training, etc., right? Okay. America's using Israel in the same way to get to Iran. Think about it. It's a little different, but they're using Israel as a proxy to get to Iran. And that's what they want. Now, Iran is a threat to America and Europe, not because they could wipe out Israel. I don't think America and Europe really cares about that one way or the other. But the governments, not the people, the governments. But if Iran is left unchecked, they will control the oil in the Middle East and make these other countries listen to them by threat of missile attack and terrorism and all this other stuff, and start shooting ships. In other words, let's say the UAE doesn't want to play ball with Iran. Well, then Iran just starts taking out ships that are transporting oil from the UAE. Like the Houthis do in the Red Sea, they'll do in the Persian Gulf, or the Sea of Oman, or even the Indian Ocean. And Iran is in the process of setting up such ship interdictions at the Straits of Gibraltar using Algeria, which is the pincher point where ships go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean and vice versa. Now, Iran may not spring that trap until they're ready, but they're setting up for it, moving missiles and soldiers over to Algeria. So with America out of the way, Iran will control Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and tell them what to sell the oil for and tell them how much oil to produce. And they'll be afraid to stand up to Iran. Because these miserable dictators are in these countries. You see, all the countries I just named are Sunni and they're dictator run. They call themselves kings, emirs, I don't care what you call them, it's the dictator. And they can't wage a war. All they do is run around, buy Rolls Royces, paint them with gold paint, and buy jets and jewelry, and the best foods are flown in every day from all over the world, and live in palaces. In other words, they're soft. Okay? They're not able to take care of themselves. They're also too dumb to unite and form a common force. That they're never going to do. And Iran would just pick them off one by one, like Hitler picked off Europe. That's all. No rocket science here. If they didn't play ball with Iran, Iran would occupy them. Which they might do anyway. They would do it themselves, use their proxies and so forth. And by controlling the price and the availability of oil, they can break the economy of Europe and America, plus other countries. They could easily double and triple the price of oil and natural gas. Then everything goes up in price because all the products get moved by truck, train, aircraft. Everything goes crazy. Break the economy. Compounding that with the trading of all the oil in the Middle East not taking place in US dollars or euros. And America and NATO are in a bad way. And Iran and Putin and Russia would be supplying their friends like China with all the oil they need at reasonable prices to keep them in line. Now, BRICS is a very serious threat to America. Putin's starting the BRIC members trading in cyber currency at the beginning of next month, September. And they're not going to be using US dollars. That means Iran's going to be selling oil without sanctions using this cyber currency, as will Russia do it without sanctions using this cyber currency. So they don't have to worry about America grabbing their money or anything like that, or blocking their transfers. So Iran and Russia will be trading oil freely, ignoring sanctions. Okay? And not in US dollar or euros. This will hurt America. The value of the dollar. America will go to war for the value of the dollar. China and India are in BRICS as well, but they're basically consumers of oil and natural gas, not sellers. So if you destroy BRICS, not by war, you just get it to crumble, cave in on itself, then China and India have to go back to buying oil along with a lot of other countries and will be paying in US dollars and euros, basically US dollars. Okay? And America will begin to rejuvenate or build back up the demand for the dollar, and the dollar will gain value. America is already at war with Russia using Ukraine. Ukraine, I am told, I haven't 100% confirmed this, but I think it's likely true. Zelensky gave an ultimatum to Putin. He said, withdraw completely from Ukraine or I will destroy Moscow and St. Petersburg. Can Zelensky do this? I believe he has demonstrated that he can definitely do this. How? It is believed he's got some more advanced long-range missiles from NATO members that could care less about him attacking Russia. They say, go with it, it's fine with us. And he's really shot missiles into Russia many times in the past few months and got hits. So he'll just send missiles into Moscow and St. Petersburg along with drones. He'll do swarm attacks. The Russian air defense systems are not good. Not at all. And they'll get through. This will throw Russia, the nation at whole, into sheer panic. Putin won't know what to do. Putin's best option right now, and he recently missile attacked Ukraine horribly the other day. Putin's best move right now is to take everything he has and throw it at Ukraine and try to occupy Ukraine completely. If Putin could pull this off, he'll be around again to play another day. If Putin can't pull it off, Russia's had it. Now, Belarus, which is a satellite proxy, you might say, of Russia, has a border with Ukraine, and they have been moving tanks and trucks and troops and everything to the border with Ukraine. So it looks like they may invade Ukraine along with Russia. Now, there's also Russian troops and equipment in Belarus. Same for Kaliningrad, which is actually part of Russia proper. So it is possible that Russia will try this big attack on Ukraine. It is also possible if he does this, and it looks like Zelensky will be overrun, that's Ukraine leader, NATO will send, 30, 50, 80,000, I think they have 80,000 ready to go, send 80,000 NATO soldiers into Ukraine. And they'll come with artillery, missiles, air support, helicopters, jets, bombers, everything else. And then Putin would have walked into a trap, and they will bomb his military might in Ukraine. Now, if Russia is going to do this, he's probably talking maybe 300,000-400,000 soldiers pushing hard into Ukraine with air support, missile support, artillery support, everything, right? And if NATO steps in and starts blowing up these soldiers, it could break the back of Putin, because he could lose that army that he put in Ukraine and all their equipment. And then Ukraine will attack Moscow and St. Petersburg, and the area, which was 1,250 square kilometers that's occupied by Ukraine and Russia, would start greatly expanding. And I believe Ukraine would, after that area probably tripled or quadrupled in size, Ukraine would probably annex it and call it Ukraine. See, their idea apparently is to split Russia into multiple countries so it doesn't rebuild. So what that tells me is, I'm not expecting Putin to do anything in the Middle East right now. He can't. China sent 18,000 soldiers to Russia to help them, and I understand they're going to send more. So they may actually send 50,000, or they might send 100,000, I don't know. And then what's China going to do? You killed our soldiers while we were invading Ukraine illegally, and we're going to hold you responsible. And what are they going to do? They're going to scratch their head and say, we lost 100,000 soldiers. Or do you think Russia will win? I don't think they'll win. I think they'll cause a lot of destruction. I don't think there'll be a clear winner in this one. There could be, but I think it's just going to be a lot of destruction, both sides. The safest thing for Putin to do is just attack Ukraine, because it wouldn't be construed as an attack on NATO, is his hope. And it could accomplish his goals of stopping the threats to Russia. And he could even get a victory and show the Russian people he grabbed all of Ukraine and emerge a hero. And that could happen. I don't spend a lot of time following wars and events that other countries get into if it's not going to affect Israel rather directly. I don't pay much attention to it. So I am not a Ukraine expert. I do study what's going on to a limited extent, but there's people that know more about Ukraine and Russia than I do, the war, you know. But I get a general idea of what's going on. All right. When it comes to Israel, I think I'm pretty good, real good at that. But I live here and I know Bible prophecy, not, you know, Ukraine and Russia are not really in Bible prophecy, nor is there war. Okay, so America has it out for Russia, and America has it out for Iran. They get rid of them. They have no more problem with BRICS, no more problem with oil being sold US dollars. Okay? Now, what was Obama up to with all the sleeper agents is a good question, because many people feel he influences Biden. I'm using those words nicely. And we don't have, you know, hard documentation that that's true, but a lot of people believe it, which doesn't make it true. A lot of people believe in the pre-trib rapture. That doesn't make it true. Let's work through this. Why did Biden throw the doors open to the border? Well, one reason that likely could be the true reason was to let various illegals come in, give them instant amnesty so they could stay for quite a few years as, you know, making it lawful. Even though they entered illegally, they became lawful. And have the states give them rights to vote, so the Biden character would have been able to get his re-election votes, which would now transfer to Kamala. They just start offering giveaways to these people. That's all they got to do. That's it. It could be that Obama wanted to change the face of America and, you know, let them in and convert to Sharia law. And maybe that has something to do with the giving the illegals the vote. Eventually they would get enough votes in certain states and cities that they would attempt to put the state or the city under Sharia law and have Sharia courts and things like this. And then Obama would be able to change the face of America into a land of people with many genders and Sharia law. And the Jews and the Christians and the Catholics would be under severe persecution day and night. And this is a likely idea he had, and it went bad. He hit a booby trap when they wound up coming in, 70% military age males, they call sleeper agents, going to the up to 350,000 acres of land that China has purchased for 10 years. And much of this land is adjacent or next to American major military bases. So this is a serious problem that could have blown up on Obama-Biden. Yet they're still pushing forward with it, so they probably think it can be controlled, which I don't think they're right with. Remember, with Trump, if there's another election, if prophetic time allows, and he wins, he doesn't get control until January 20th, which is a long way off. And Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea, and all these people know they got to make their move before Trump. Now, they are probably never going to be completely convinced that Trump's going to lose unless you see Kamala emerge with 18-point lead consistently, which is certainly not the case. And then let's say Trump did get elected, he did get in, it's January 20th, and what's he going to do? He can't operate yet. He's got to change the Secretary of Defense, Homeland Security Secretary, the State Department, all the cabinet needs to be changed. The heads of the Pentagon and the military need to be changed, along with many other people. He has to get Congress to approve many of these changes. And then his people in the military and defense and the CIA and NSA and all of that could start to build their own cadre of loyal leaders in that particular organization. And then they can begin executing Trump's plans. You're probably looking at 3 to 6 months. Okay. So I would say best case, it puts you into the end of April 2025. It's a long way off. And China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and them, I figure they have to make their move before Trump. So this puts an urgency on the matter. Okay. So the attack on Israel, October 7th, was allowed to happen. Then Israel voraciously started fighting against Hamas. And then America kept trying to get Israel to back down on the fighting. And it kept up and go back and forth, humanitarian aid, all this stuff was going on, right? And then Hezbollah enters into the war, which was expected. And Biden doesn't give a hoot what Israel does to Lebanon, well, to Hezbollah, pretty much. I haven't seen him try to rein Israel in. And then the Houthis got into it, but they came up with a wild card and started sinking ships that they could somehow align with Israel. So if a big shipping company with 300 ships had one ship that delivered, T-shirts or tomatoes or whatever to Israel, or took such a load of socks or something or sofas out of Israel, they would attack that ship plus any other ship So, the situation with Iran is just out of control. The alibi for attacking Iran could be multiple. One, the nuclear threat, which is bogus, but number two, attacking our ally Israel. Number three, attacking the American and British bases in Iraq and Syria. Number four, they could attack Jordan, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain for taking down missiles and drones that they have headed towards Israel. So Iran is a general pain in the neck, okay? And they want to get rid of it, but they have to lead Iran down the path of getting really out of control. So it looks like America had no choice but to attack Iran. They're not going to say, oh, we had to crumble bricks because they're going to trade oil and gas without using the dollar. You can't say that. Okay? So right after Hezbollah was victoriously hit by Israel some days ago, Ben-Gvir starts with tours of the Temple Mound for Jews, and then I believe that's going to be starting. And then he starts, we need to get a synagogue built on the Temple Mount. Now, Netanyahu's going to go up in arms over this. Biden is going crazy over this. He's talking about putting sanctions on Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. Well, if we put sanctions on them, what will happen is before the sanctions take hold, they'll move all their money out of their bank accounts. It's only going to affect them on bank accounts. And they'll just have friends do the banking for them. That's all that will happen. What do you think will happen? That's it. That's it. Not a big deal. Also, it'll start to turn the Israeli government against America in a very, very big way, because putting sanctions on members of the Knesset is going pretty far. And it shows Israel is trying to run, America's trying to run Israel, not the other way around. Now, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich have enough votes in their parties, which have, I believe, grown in popularity, to call for a vote of no confidence against Netanyahu. Ben-Gvir and Smotrich have, at least, they used to have about 15 votes combined. I wouldn't be surprised if they have 20 or more now. The ultra-Orthodox party, United Torah Judaism and Shas, have about 15 votes combined. And they may very well throw in with Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, because Netanyahu has always promised them that they wouldn't be drafted in. Now they're facing the draft. It's law. Draft notices went out. If they don't abide by the draft notice, they could go to prison. And more draft notices are going out, and Netanyahu's not enforcing them as far as I could tell. And the result of that is going to be the Supreme Court will wait, and then they'll do a filing and demand the government tell them why they're not enforcing the laws. And then the government could be held liable by the Supreme Court, the members individually. So it's just a matter of time, and that house of cards is going to fall down. And the ultra-Orthodox men are going to either be in the military, or they're going to be walking around with warrants on their head, which means they're not going to be able to renew their identity cards or renew their passports. It could mean their bank accounts could get frozen if they want to push it further. They could get, if they get picked up, the warrants could show up. They can't leave the country. Lots of problems. So the ultra-Orthodox have a pretty good incentive of hooking up with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. The problem is Smotrich and Ben-Gvir kind of like the ultra-Orthodox being drafted. So they might not side with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, but they might. Ben-Gvir and Smotrich may try to come up with some concessions for them or something like that. Or they might like the idea of the synagogue on the Temple Mount and stuff like that, and they may go for it. Ben-Gvir and Smotrich are not ultra-Orthodox. They don't wear black coats and white shirts and black hats and black shoes. They wear a kippah and they wear the tzitzit, the tassels. So they're Orthodox. They're not ultra-Orthodox. They are anti-Christian and they are anti-Messianic. Don't get that wrong. Oh, don't get that wrong at all. Anything to be with Yeshua, they oppose. Okay? I'm going to take a quick look in the chat and see if I got to throw garbage out. Um, I don't know what a space laser is, let alone does Israel have a space laser. I never heard of anything like that. They have anti-missile lasers, that's about it. Okay, so they're afraid of Ben Gavir and Smotrich, but Netanyahu has to be careful because if he provokes Ben Gavir enough, Ben Gavir and Smotrich will just call for a vote of no confidence, being a wartime thing. They'll have a new vote in the Knesset probably a day later or the same day, and a whole new government could be formed virtually overnight. Now, what might be likely to occur is not that it's possible Ben Gavir or Smotrich could be elected prime minister. Ben Gavir more likely than Smotrich. It's a possibility. Or Ben Gavir could work a deal with other political parties that are not as perhaps religious as him, where he becomes the Minister of Defense and the Security Minister as well. So he would be controlling the wars. Now that would be something. It's very interesting. Thinking. Can Netanyahu make this idea of putting a synagogue up there go away? I don't know. What are the? He may not be able to. Really, seriously, I'm not kidding. Because he'll get thrown out of office if he does. There's people that don't like Netanyahu in Israel. They are very suspicious about October 7th. They're very angry that he hasn't gotten the hostages back. They're very angry that the military keeps saying he's dragging out the war. And they're very angry because they think he's keeping Israel in war to prevent his 3 criminal trials from moving forward faster. So yeah, I mean, it's not hard to imagine Netanyahu getting thrown out of office. Now, the Israelis are nervous about doing that during a war, which is when they should be most interested in doing it, but it has the opposite with them. But now they see the threat with Hezbollah is mitigated, the threat with Hamas is mitigated, so they might not be that concerned about getting rid of Netanyahu. It could happen. The red heifer. The red heifer, you have to have a perfect red heifer without blemish, spot. The rabbis say they have, I think, 4, 5, something like that, that are perfect still. They sacrifice the red heifer, they burn it, they take the ashes, they mix it with water, and they make some type of, it's in the Torah, it's in the Bible, if you will, a purifying water. And you don't pour it, you just like sprinkle it, a few drops or something, on a person, and that makes them, clean. And the ultra-Orthodox, and probably some of the Orthodox, won't go to the Temple Mound because they think it's the original real site of the temple, and they think it's a holy place. But with the red water from the heifer, the water from the red heifers, they will feel they are, ritually cleansed and go up there to pray. That's 1.2 million ultra Orthodox in Israel. You got the scope of this? 1.2 million. And you could probably add in a couple 100,000 of the regular Orthodox, or maybe a 500,000 or 1,000,000, I don't know, that would feel more willing to go up there if the red heifer water was available. Now, what do the Muslims think? There's two kinds of Muslims predominantly. There's lots of them, but the big two chunks are Sunni and Shiite. The Shiite follow Islamic literature called the Hadith, Hadith in English. I don't know how you pronounce it in Arabic. And these are stories and writings outside the Bible, outside the Quran, which is like their Bible. But they're followed and taken seriously by lots of Muslims, not just Shiites, but the Shiites especially so. Who are the Shiites in the Middle East? Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Gaza, Lebanon are basically the Shiites. Turkey, I think, is more Sunni. Okay. Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan are more Sunni than they are Shiite. They lean more towards that. The Sunnis don't believe that the Dome of the Rock is where Muhammad ascended to heaven. They think it's a lie. They use the calendar dating, and they say it never happened. They don't think it's such a holy place at all. The Quran doesn't specifically state what I'm going to tell you. It comes from the Hadith, which these Shiites tend to follow. The analysis of this goes like this. The Jews get the red heifer. They're good red heifers. They sacrifice, make the water, spritz through the water. Now they go up to the Temple Mount to pray. What happens? Now remember, the Jews didn't have good red heifers for centuries. So they go up to the Dome of the Rock area and they pray. And then the dialogue from these Muslims is that they're going to view the Allah's Mosque and the Dome of the Rock as an abomination correctly for worshiping other gods. And it's right near where their temple is, and they're going to go into a frenzy and demolish the Dome of the Rock and the Allah's Mosque, probably with the protection of the Israeli police and military. The Arabs say this paves the way for them to not just have a synagogue, to have a temple. Of course, these Muslims that are following the Hadith are going to say that this synagogue is basically the temple, but they're calling it a synagogue. In America, they refer to the synagogue as the temple, by the way. In other countries, too, they call it a temple. Not the temple, but they call it a temple. I'm going to go to, it's common to say, I'm going to go to temple. Okay? It should be called a meeting place, which is also, in the Hebrew, they say, Bet Knesset. Bet Knesset means house of gathering or house of meeting. So that's how the Israelis that speak Hebrew predominantly call it Bet Knesset. The word synagogue is not really used in Israel, and the Israelis don't normally refer to a synagogue as a temple at all, okay? Nor a tabernacle. Mikdash, Mishkan are those words, not Bet Knesset, which is house meeting. How many Arabs know this? I have no idea. So, probably not many. So the writings of this hadith tell them that the Jews are going to use the red heifer, purify themselves, get up to the Temple Mound, and then they're going to get into a frenzy and destroy the temple and build their own temple. Now, putting the synagogue up there is going to make them believe that it is really the temple being called the synagogue. They believe that the Jewish Messiah, who the Jews that go to the Talmudic synagogue believe will come as a result of their good works. And if that's not crazy, they also have two messiahs they're waiting for, Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. And it's a very confusing thing. There's Mashiach Yeshua is the Messiah. But anyway, they're not right on that. So they're not sure which Messiah is going to come when. It's very confusing. And they think they're going to usher in the Messiah by doing the good works of the law, but they don't follow the law, they follow the Talmud. And the good works of the Talmud is going to get you nothing but the lake of fire, because they're not good works. Unless God shows mercy, which he will, because he has blinded their eyes and ears. So the 2,000-year punishment in Hosea 6:1 and 2 will be fulfilled, and they don't turn to him and get healed before. But guess what? Muhammad's time's up, and that's the problem for them. So what they think is that the Jews will knock down the Dome of Rock Al-As Mosque, take over the Temple Mount, and put a temple up there, and their Jewish Messiah will then arrive. Because there is a school of thought that if they build the temple, then the Messiah will arrive. So they build the temple, the Messiah arrives. Now this is where it gets really like Schofield-y and very satanic. Their doctrine is that the Jewish Messiah to them is called a Dajjal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I would say in transliterated English, D-A-J-A-L. They believe that this Messiah of the Jews is, I don't know, like an Antichrist in a Muslim version, and I'll explain. They believe that he's not a real Messiah. They teach that Yeshua is a Muslim now, stuff like this. So they believe and teach, and the mullahs at the mosque priests that preach with the Shiites anyway, that this Jewish Messiah is going to tell the Jews that they have to eradicate the Muslims out of Israel, the Middle East, or whatever, and we'll start a war against the Muslims. And their literature, the Hadith, apparently says that there's not going to be many that are going to make it. It sounds like some kind of Schofield junk reversed into Islamic literature. The red heifer scared them. The Jews going up to the Temple Mount to pray scares them. Tours on the Temple Mount is going to have them quaking in their boots, and a synagogue up there is going to, I would believe, cause a holy war. Can Ben Gavir and Smotrich pull it off? It's possible. They just get, look, they got probably 30, combined with the ultra-Orthodox, they got 30 votes, but it may be 35. You need 61 to be in control of the government. So they're at least halfway there, let's say. So then they got to bring in other players like Lieberman, who brings in 5, 6, 7, 8 votes, depending on how his popularity goes. Let's say 6. Likud party probably won't run with them. It's going to be hard. They might try to work with Benny Gantz, but he's not going to be very interested in putting a synagogue up there. So they'd have to make some kind of concession deals with some of the more substantial parties to push themselves to 61 votes. Ben-Gvir and Smotrich would insist on certain things, like the status quo at Temple Mound is done away with, and we're going to build a synagogue up there. Or Netanyahu, out of fear of losing the election, is getting the 16-year prison sentence at its maximum for his 3 crimes the trial's ongoing with, but suspended because of the war. He may just cave in and say, okay, build a synagogue. Keep it under 2,000 square feet or something like that. I don't know. I believe that if the synagogue thing goes up on the Temple Mount, Biden will turn against Israel for satanic reasons. And I'm going to take a quick break for a minute and come back and talk about that. I'm going to get a cup of coffee also. I'll be back rather quickly though. I'm going to use instant coffee, and I got a turbo water boiler. It's really called turbo. So, if Israel puts the synagogue up on the Temple Mound, Satan is going to get scared. He will think it's the beginning of the construction of the temple. And he will be afraid of the two witnesses, the glory of God, everything. And he will turn Biden against Israel whole hog. That should not be hard to believe. Now, can we find scriptures like that? Yes. We can. We find them in Jeremiah, I think, 51. Let me see if I could get the verse real quick on a search. Jeremiah 51, verse 24. And I will render unto Babel, which is the daughter of Babylon, it's America, and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, again America, all their evil that they have done in Zion, Israel, in your sight, saith Jehovah. Now, it's talking about the people, the Israelites, okay? So we should expect America to turn against Israel in a real way. And I could think of nothing better than this. And it has nothing to do with the Muslims and Iran and NATO. It has something to do with Satan, okay? And he's not just going to turn America against us, he'll turn everything he can against us. And that would take us to the culmination of Zechariah 12. Now, this would involve probably many twists and turns and unexpected events along the way. But Ben-Gvir, who has access to, I would say, at least 90% of the intelligence briefings in Israel, maybe because he's security minister, he may have access to 99%, knows with behavior like this that Hezbollah has been defeated and Hamas is defeated and Syria is not that big a threat and he's not that afraid of Iran. So this type of holier than thou attitude that Jews have put upon themselves in the past have caused their destruction, and we know 2/3 will get cut off. We don't know, and we also see it in Ezekiel 34, but we don't know who does it. It could be America, it could be Elijah and Apostle John, the two witnesses, I'm not sure. It doesn't give us any, it leads me to think, based on Malachi 3, it's Elijah that does it. Because the bad ones, the Satanists, the real bad ones, will oppose Elijah training the Levites to make the sacrifices. Now, we know from Ezekiel 37, it says that we'll have the tabernacle and a temple. Now the tabernacle, we know from 2 Maccabees 2, has been hidden in Mount Nebo, the mountain that Moses died on after seeing the promised land, in a cave by Jeremiah, sealed up until God shows mercy to Israel, which is like any day now. And it's sealed, and you're going to need a prophet to unseal it, and Elijah and Apostle John would categorize that way. And they would go and be able to bring it back with workmen that would be Levites, you know. You need to be a Levite to handle it and touch it. So they would bring it back, and it could go up on the Temple Mount next to a synagogue or something like that, you know. Synagogues are probably going to continue in Israel, not, you know, just as a house of meeting for the people to gather and pray without having to go to Jerusalem, because there's only 3 go up holidays a year. And there's other holidays, and, you know, they probably like to go to the synagogue on Shabbat and stuff like that, you know. So it's highly likely that that'll happen again. I would expect it. Could I be wrong? Yes, but I would expect it, but I could be wrong. I don't have a written guarantee, but I think so. I don't know so. Thinking. The site of the Temple Mount's not really where the temple goes, but if they get rid of the abominations up there, it's close enough to the real site where I think they could work with it. We'll have to see. Am I sure that everything's going to happen the way I just told you? No, I'm not, but it's a good working hypothesis here, and very unexpected. A synagogue on the Dome of the Rock can do the trick. And remember, Biden is not going to oppose this because of what the other Muslims think. He's going to oppose it because of what Satan thinks. This is just hitting too close to home for Satan. So he may come in and try to stop it with his soldiers. And that might be the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, with America holding off on it with God. And then comes the destruction of the daughter of Babylon. It's usually what the nations, the heathen nations, do to Israel that caused this to come on them. But when you go back to the Babylonian captivity, a lot of the Jews were playing the game of the holier than, how holy we are. And they wouldn't go to Babylon, and they were saying, Jerusalem's the cauldron, and we're the meat, and we're protected. And the ones that didn't go to Babylon didn't make it. Okay? And then with Herod's temple, they were playing the same game, provoking the Romans, and they wound up getting it. And they were doing the offerings and the sacrifices and the Shabbat and wearing the tzitzit, but they were following the Talmud to a great extent, and they weren't following the law. They were using the Talmud, and they weren't following the weightier or the heavier things of the law, how they treat each other, and how they treat the strangers and the foreigners. And they were scammers, con men, frauds, and they would go sacrifice animals, and observe the Shabbat and wear the tzitzit and stuff like that and pray, and they would think it's going to work. It's the same way here today. It doesn't work with God. The Bar Kokhba revolution against the Romans after the 70 AD, it's kind of similar thing. You know, he said he was the Messiah. They followed him and they figured with Messiah they couldn't lose against the Romans, and the Romans wiped them out. So this could very likely be that. They'll smack up a synagogue, get the red heifer water, and they're off to the races. Where's Mashiach? You know, this type of thing. The real Mashiach, they call a bastard. They call him a witch. They say he's not the Son of God. He didn't rise from the dead. He's not the Messiah. Now, God will have mercy on them because he blinded their eyes and stopped up their ears for the 2,000 years, lest they turn to him and be healed. So he didn't open their eyes or ears, so the punishment would be fulfilled. Now, the ones that are walking with Satan and the demons knowingly and openly, they know there's angels, they know Yeshua is real and all this, you know. Anytime you demon toss somebody in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach and they know the demon suddenly just goes out, now the world has changed for them. Because now they know there's Yeshua's really the Messiah, and you know they're going to still continue to war against him. See what I mean? Things get a lot worse for them. Before I forget, please keep praying for Chief, the dog, for him to heal up from his fall with the legs. He's walking around. He's kind of like he was yesterday. I don't know. Maybe he's a little better. I don't know. But please keep the prayers going. I have a bad feeling it's going to be a slow healing. I hope it gets faster. It's hard on the little guy. All right. Give me a second. Okay. Let me check my notes for what other things I wanted to cover. they're saying Biden's been having secret conversations with Iran over their nuclear treaty. I have no idea of knowing if this is true or not, but it's going around. I don't know. Does Iran threaten America with the sleeper agents? We don't know that. We really don't know. Biden is very afraid of something here in the Middle East, undoubtedly. He's not very afraid with what Ukraine, his proxy in Europe, does to Russia. But he's very afraid what Israel, his proxy in the Middle East, does to their enemies. You notice the difference? Okay. Big difference. You know, the analogy would be, let's say he goes to Israel. He has 6 F-22 Raptors, will train your pilots. This will enable you to hands down fly anywhere in Iran you want and bomb them. See, that would be the equivalent of what he does for Ukraine, applied to Israel. Because we have more advanced weaponology than Ukraine. So that's not going on. America, told us a couple of days, I think 2 days ago, that Iran was getting ready to attack us. Now, you got to understand there is a possible scenario where Iran attacks the American bases without Israel. I told you that. To get rid of America and then have at us. And America's not going to put up with that because they know that Iran will have control of the oil. And months or a year or so from now, the economy in America and Europe will be disastrous. Israel wants to put Iran out of business and just fly in and attack their oil refineries and their piers and ports where they offload the oil onto ships and probably get their pipelines and maybe their oil wells, refineries, things like this as well. And when you put Iran out of business, there'll be sheer chaos in Iran. And then the CIA and MI6 and all the others start, Mossad and whatever, start supporting a revolutionary force in Iran and to overthrow the government. But this is not in the Bible prophecy. The Iraq, Syria, and Iran get attacked by their enemies, plural, and get busted up so bad the people leave the country in its entirety and migrate around the world to every country, and the sword chases them. And this is over Israel. Okay? Oh, Yemen's still getting more floods, by the way. Yeah, the continuing whirlwind of the Lord falling on the head of the wicked. You have a scenario where Iran just attacks Israel, and Israel will attack Iran not a day or two later. As soon as they send the first missiles and drones, our bombers are going to go there and start bombing. And Netanyahu said the first targets are going to be your oil and your natural gas. Israel may stop that and say, if you do that, we won't do any more takedowns. You'll just have to deal with yourself. But I don't think so. They want to provoke a fight with Iran in a way. They want Israel to not win, Israel to not occupy any more land anywhere, and Iran to no longer be the power that it is in the Middle East. Iran being allied with China and North Korea and Russia, of course, bears heavily in this, So it looks like if this thing with the synagogue goes, that's it. Now, Jordan will turn on Israel. We've been waiting for that. If Jordan might turn on Israel just from doing tours for Jews of the Temple Mount, because that's upsetting the status quo and changing it. And Jordan, the king of Jordan, is the what do you call it? There's a word for this, like a housekeeper for the Temple Mound. And if we change the norm that it's been for decades, Jordan will go crazy. Now, the tours would accomplish that, but it may not drive him to war. Putting a synagogue up there would. Now, bear in mind, you don't have to actually have a complete synagogue up there to make the world go crazy, because Satan will go crazy. Just the beginning of the construction of the temple of a synagogue up there would do it before it's completed. This might also cause nations to not allow Jews and believers in Yeshua to migrate to Israel. So the two witnesses would probably have to straighten that out, which they would be more than happy to do. And it wouldn't be graceful negotiations. It'd be more like, hey, you think you're in control, but we're in control. How many plagues does it take for me to convince you? What would you like? Boils, wasps, hornets, frogs, snakes, rats, monkeys, water turning to blood, hail. You know, what do you know, do you know what it's going to take? We'll speed things up. Oh, you don't? Okay, well, let's start with, 6-inch hail. And then we'll go to 12-inch, and then we'll go to 18, and see how you like that. It's just a matter of wearing them down, like Pharaoh got wore down, but it would be much faster. Because Jehovah's not going to be hardening their heart. They're just going to freak out and get scared to death. And while they have fear of Satan and all that, when they see fear of Jehovah imminent coming upon them in minutes, they're going to chuck Satan and, submit and worship Jehovah. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. So I wouldn't be worried if they try that, because Satan will tell them, oh, you ought to stop them from coming to Israel, and all that. Well, that's because he sees that God's going to be running the world that he's been in control of for a long time, with his people, Israel, serving him. So he'll freak out, but he doesn't have any power. You ever see anybody cast demons out and Satan hits them with a lightning bolt, or hail comes down on their head, or fire and brimstone? I never heard of it. It never happened. Satan's all bluff. He's lost his power. He's got nothing. He lies to people and deceives the people and gets people to do his will. So can he threaten to kill somebody if they were serving him and then went away? Yeah, but he would kill him, like have a policeman pull him over with the car, plant the gun and shoot the guy, that kind of kill him. Not with fire and brimstone or opening up the earth or anything like that, okay? So people fear him. They know the police departments, the agencies of law enforcement and intelligence are all run by his people, so they're scared of him. They know that if they go over and go to Jehovah, that he'll kill their families. He's a real piece of work, these Satan and the unclean spirits. You have to understand that. He's a real garbage bucket. And he doesn't care about his disciples. They're just pawns for him to stay out of the pit. That's all it is. That's all it is. So if something like this happens, could it be easy to see the siege completing? Yeah, I could see Jordan turning against Israel then easily. Egypt joining in, not a problem. Turkey, not a problem. That would push them over the line because Satan would freak out and tell them to come after Israel. Satan doesn't like sending nations against Israel because they lose. But if he sees something like this happening, in his desperation, he'll try anything. Say, well, these people are doing me no good. They're building on the Temple Mound. So may as well send them at them and see, maybe I'll get lucky, you know. He's a pathetic piece of garbage, you know. I have a spiritual warfare thing I'm going to share with you. A lot of you are married and you have a spouse that's a real pain in the neck. Now, you could be the woman and the man's the spouse. You could be the man and the woman's the spouse. They threaten to leave you, throw you out of the house, take the kids away from you, all the standard operating garbage. And you toss these people and you break the witchcraft spells and enchantments, and it keeps happening. If you're not tossing them, you need to be tossing them daily or more. And you need to be commanding the unclean spirits to no longer appear to them, speak to them, guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, threaten them, do good things for them. And you have to stop them from sending people to help them as well, and put a period of time on it. And that'll get you a lot of mileage. But what you have to look for is the friends of this spouse. A lot of times, especially if they're attending church or a Messianic congregation, this spouse, be it male or female, has got friends that are serving the unclean spirits. In other words, a false believer. They know they're serving the unclean spirits. They impersonate being a believer. And they're doing witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments, and prodding this person on to give you trouble. Okay? And you have to go after them with spiritual warfare. And if they're in a church or a Messianic congregation, make war against the whole congregation, and spiritual warfare against the whole congregation and the whole church. Demon toss all everybody in the church that's serving the unclean spirits. Demon toss them. Tell the unclean spirits they can't do anything to influence any of the meetings, Sunday or otherwise. They're not allowed in. They can't help. They can't be inside anybody in the meeting. They can't do anything. And break the church. Every day do it. They're trying to break your life, break your marriage, ruin your kids. That's Satan. That's how he comes at you. He can't get you. He tries the spouse. He can't get to the spouse maybe directly. Has people in the spouse's life influence him. You wage war against the people that are doing it. They got friends, go after their friends, spiritual warfare-wise. Demon toss, break spells, enchantments, stop the unclean spirits from using them or appearing to them. When you throw the unclean spirits out of these people, send them to the pit where they go when they leave a person, and tell them they got to stay there 5 years continuously. Beginning immediately, B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach, get them out for a few years. And say no new ones could come back for 5 years or something like that. Try stuff. Just keep doing it over and over again. And what they'll do is they'll stop from experience. They'll stop going in that person. But they will come and appear to that person briefly and talk to that person, perhaps through other people or directly. So you have to cut that off too. Now, if the spouse is a false believer, knowingly serving the unclean spirits and not admitting it, this will likely provoke a divorce or a separation. I just want to tell you that. Because this person is not going to be willing to live without the unclean spirits and will not be cognizant of the fact that you could keep doing it to them even after they're divorced. So you might want to remind them of that. But they're not going to give up. Satan trains them not to give up. That's why Biden's continuing with the peace treaties. You know, don't give up, don't give up. You know, and it's a stupid doctrine, but he does that. And you know, if that's the case, and you married a false believer, you are going to have trouble one way or the other. You'll have constant torment being in the house with that person, or that person will divorce you unscripturally just to get away from you. Because they can't live without these unclean spirits. They don't want to. One giveaway will be after you demon tossed them and made sure they've been tossed properly and completely, and there's no unclean spirits coming back in there or hovering around them or helping and protecting them. Ask them to go places with you, like the mall was perfect. Hey, let's go to the mall, walk around, we'll get some lunch, see what's going on, you know, come on. And they're not going to want to walk with you. They won't want to walk next to you because they'll be afraid some witch will be in there and try to do some witchcraft against you, and they'll think that, you know, they're the spouse of you, and their demon doesn't detect the demon in them, and they may throw witchcraft and sorcery spells, enchantments on them. Okay? So they're not going to want to walk with you, next to you. That'll tell you things. That'll tell you a lot. Okay? One of the best times to do spiritual warfare against the spouse is while they're sleeping, so they get to wake up in the morning and, you know, their little demons are gone. What a nice way to wake up. See, they don't really care that they're married to you. They will torment you to get favor with the unclean spirits. They will ruin your life to get favor with the unclean spirits. They will ruin your children to get favor with the unclean spirits, unless the children have been converted already. You got to be careful, because the children could already be converted. So you have to do spiritual warfare on the children. Now, not all the time can they bring the children in. It doesn't always work that way for them, but you do spiritual warfare on the children. Now, it may be coming from their parents as well, or their sisters and their brothers, not their friends, or their aunts and their uncles and cousins. So whoever they're in contact with, you've got to wage spiritual warfare on them. You've got to cover the whole circle. Do I think this is going to make for a peaceful marriage to a false believer? No. Do I think anything will lead to a peaceful marriage with a false believer? Probably not. But I can't say God could work it out. So all things are possible with God, but probably not in my experiences in the past, although things are changing in the world, maybe. They may not divorce you, because if they divorce you, they lose their grip on you, and it would be an unspiritual, an unbiblical divorce, and it would free you to remarry, and they may not want that. They want to keep making you miserable. You can, if you stay persistent and do the spiritual warfare daily or multiple times a day, you will win. How that win will manifest, I don't know. But it might be that they just unbiblically throw you out the window and divorce you and don't take the kids or something like that. Now, if they got the kids that have been converted to serving the unclean spirits, they may blow out with the divorce and leave you with the kids, so the kids can torment you. That's very unlikely. Now, I'm not talking that you're married to somebody and they go to church and you don't go, and they believe in Schofield, the rapture, and all that, and you don't. I mean, there is a rapture, but not the preacher, you know. And, you know, that doesn't mean, and you get along and you can go places together and you have a pretty okay marriage and you just agree on the scripture. That's not the sign of a Satan bomb, okay? That's a sign of somebody that's just deceived. Maybe they're called but not chosen, or I don't know what. Okay, but that's not a Satan body. A Satan body is going to go make your life miserable. All kinds of threats, all kinds of fights, all kinds of everything. They're going to try to make you angry, because anger is a sin. Don't get angry. Fight back with spiritual warfare. When you fight in the spirit, you win. When you get angry, you're in the flesh. When you yell and you scream, you lose. Just fight back in the spirit. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but the powers of the air, the unclean spirits. And believe me, it won't take you long to get a victory when you do what I'm telling you. It will not take a long time. It's not going to take, months and years. It's going to happen quick. Their life will change. They will cave in. They will collapse. They will not know what to do. You're cutting them off from what they think are their gods, and now they got to realize their gods aren't really gods. And they're going to go into chaos. And they're going to seek the counsel of other people that serve the unclean spirits, and you're going to toss them too. Anybody that counsels them, you command the unclean spirits to immediately depart from. So you keep alienating them from any help, comfort, assistance, deceit, anything they could get. You keep cutting them off. Is this going to lead them to serving the Lord? Probably not. They might cut bait and run and divorce, or they might say they want to spite you, and eventually you'll give up on tossing them, and they'll just stay there and eventually hope to get back in the game. And don't let that happen. Just keep tossing, spiritual warfare, spiritual warfare. Do it all the time. Don't do it at the same time of the day and night. Vary the time and keep doing it. And, you don't have to repeat the same thing, like I command you unclean spirits not to appear to this person, nor help this person, nor threaten this person, nor guide this person, nor send people to help them or threaten them or guide them. Have no contact with this person whatsoever for the next 5 years continuously, through people or not through people, or using any means at your disposal, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You don't have to repeat that every day. Okay? You should tell the unclean spirits they shall not go in this person. You could toss them every day if you want to, a few times a day, and I'm telling you from my experience, when you toss them day after day after day, they stop going in the person. Then they start appearing to the person and talking to them. Well, you cut that off. Then they start sending people to counsel the person directly on the internet, on the phone. You cut that off by tossing the demons out of them and stopping the unclean spirits from contacting them. And on it goes. Tell the unclean spirits, you command them, they're not allowed to surveillance you or your spouse or your children or your vehicle using any means at their disposal, people or otherwise, and they're not allowed in your house. Inside people or not inside people, and give a certain period of time, like a year, and they shall not communicate with anybody in your house, nor appear to anybody in your house, or, stuff like this. You just keep building the wall around it, and they will cave in. What that means is they could just decide they're going to walk through life with you as a zombie to keep you in torment someday in the future, or they'll say, this is not for me, I need to go live my life, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to divorce her, or I'm going to divorce him. It could go either way, and go live my life and do an unbiblical divorce, and then you're set free. They're selfish, they're covetous, they're greedy, they're narcissistic, and then they might do that. Now, especially if they're younger, if they're over 40 or over 50, it'd be less likely. Okay? Now, in some cases, the person divorcing you can get a good amount of alimony from you, child support from you if they get the kids. You know, there's all kinds of twists and turns. But if you're living with one of these schmucks and you're laying in the bed next to the spouse who's packing a demon inside them, what do you want to live like that for? Now, don't divorce them. There's no scripture that says if your spouse serves other gods or unclean, false gods or unclean spirits, you could divorce them. There's no scripture for that. If your spouse is content to dwell with you, yeah. Could you divorce them because they're doing witchcraft and sorcery on you and that's why they're dwelling with you? I'd be very careful with that. Search the Lord. I mean, I would be very hesitant to do that. I think it means that if the spouse leaves you, you're not under any compulsion. In other words, no longer dwells with you. I don't think it means if they fight with you and argue with you and give you a hard time that you can divorce them. No. If they move out, let's say you're married to some guy who says, I can't take this. I need a break. I'm getting my own house. I'm leaving. Well, if they do that and you don't agree to it, you say, well, I'm not agreeing to that. You're doing this on your own. I'm not a part of this. So that puts it all on them, and then you would have a spiritual divorce, I think, according to the scriptures, because they pulled out. Now, you don't have to divorce them, you could. That's how I interpret the scripture. They just want to go separate and have their own house. Now, things are very complicated with this, and I'm not a counselor for any of you because I'm not with you. I don't know both parties. I don't know what's going on. I can't call it correctly. That's not really a role that the Lord put me in. I can give you scriptures, but I can't really call it. So, you know, there's all sorts of black, shades of gray in this. You have to be careful, Now, I know a case where the guy put a gun in the wife's mouth and threatened her and she separated. Well, is that in the scriptures? No. Well, they didn't have guns then. Okay, he put a sword on her throat. And that's not in there either. What do you do then? Well, you'd have to say he's not pleased to dwell with her, so then you're using that scripture. Or should we tell her that she should stay in the house while he puts a loaded gun in her mouth? You see? So there you could say, well, he's not pleased to dwell with her. He's tormenting and torturing her and using the marriage as an excuse to do that. So, like I said, maybe you can use the pleased to dwell with you scripture. I don't know. You'd have to search the Lord. I'm not put here to be a counselor to you guys, okay? I'm not. There'll be 70 counselors coming. I'm not in that role now. Okay, I'm not a counselor. All right? I'm here to teach the prophecies of Israel now. That's what I'm here to teach. I'm not here to prophesy. I'm here to teach the existing prophecy of Israel. That's my role right now. Okay, so I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, there's crazy things. What about they make you sin? You come to church with me, I'm going to church, you come to church with me. Well, that's sin. And what do? You see, I don't know all this stuff. I'm not there. I'm not with you. And a counselor would need to be with both parties. Couldn't just do it one-sided, So I don't know. Maybe the pleased to dwell with you is got broader implications than other physically dwell with you. How do you tell some woman to remain with a guy that puts a loaded gun in her mouth? How do you tell a woman to stay with a guy that beats the daylights out of her and she has to go to the emergency room and gets admitted for a day or two in the hospital? How do you tell and knock her teeth out, break her nose, break her jaw, break her rib? How do you tell her she's got to stay there? Is that what you see? I don't know all these things. I expect you to tell her to get out of there. You know, you can't send her back to such torment, you know? But what do, you know? It's it's crazy, you know? And there's guys that threaten the woman. Usually it's the guy, I'll throw you out of the house. I'll fight you in court. You won't get a dime. I'll drag it out for years. I'll get the kids away from you and all that stuff, you know. And she gets sufficiently scared and stays there. I mean, it's all, you know. I remember years ago I worked in this place, and there was a girl that worked there, and she was about 20, 19, 20, 21, or something like that, around there. She was extremely pretty, and she was pregnant when we hired her, and it was the early stages of pregnancy, and she was overall a pretty decent worker. And as I got to know her, she told me that the father of the baby, I don't think they were married. The father of the baby was in San Quentin. What was it, San Quentin? He was in jail. I don't know, one of the prisons. It was in California, one of the prisons. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know which prison it was. It was in one of the prisons for a few years. And I got into it with her and stuff like that. I believe I tried to witness to it. And she was, this guy got his hands on her when she was very young. And, they threaten them. They threaten these girls. They say, I'll kill you, I'll have my friends kill you, stuff like that. And, you see this with motorcycle gangs. You see extremely attractive girls with these bums in the motorcycle gangs, which are criminal gangs very often. And not every case, but very often. And they're drawn to this. They have, in what the shrinks will call an inferiority complex, they don't feel comfortable with somebody that's a lawyer or an accountant or a teacher. They like somebody that's been in and out of jail and has a record and, is in a gang. And then there's a lot of girls, women that are, they work as they might be a pharmacist or a nurse or something like that, and they get attracted to these misfits that are basket cases, bikers in a gang, people in and out of jail, people that are constantly kicking alcohol and drugs. And they get attracted to them because they have a bad outlook upon themselves and they don't feel comfortable with a normal person, so they hook onto these guys that are misfits that can't take care of themselves. And a lot of times that's because they've had guys cheat on them. And when they get these misfits that are taking drugs and drinking and stuff like that all the time, and the woman's taking care of them, they feel that they are not going to be cheated on because this is a guy that's totally dependent on them. Stuff like this, this goes on. But this is not with believers. These are generally non-believers on both sides of the marriage, okay? I had a friend, this is a long time ago in San Francisco. He had a college degree, and he just liked to play games. He liked adultery. No, I was not a believer then, neither was he. And he was a black belt, and he used to work, and he studied Kung Fu, and, that was what drew us together, the martial arts. And he used to like to work as bouncers in bars, because, it was easy for him, and he, generally, you don't have any real fights, you just throw people out or break up some, you don't generally have a big battle. And he it gave him opportunity to find a lot of women that he could, uh, cheat on his wife with, and he did that, and so he told me, one day I was at his house and he says, "Hey, look what I just got." And he goes to the closet and he takes a beautiful 12 gauge pump shotgun out and a 38 special revolver. I said, "Wow, those are really nice, I'm looking at the guns." He says, "Yeah, you know how I got them?" I know now. He says, "Well, there's this girl, I think I may have met her, I don't know, maybe I didn't know." And he said, her husband went to jail, and before he went away, he bought her the shotgun and the pistol to tell her to wait for him, and this is what you could use if anybody bothers you. So he told me the day the guy shipped off to jail, she called me up and asked me if I wanted to buy them, and she gave me a really low price on it, you know. And she, of course, was dumping the guy. But she wasn't going to dump him before he got locked up because she knew that he might start beating her up and threatening her or even harm her badly. There's a lot of these guys that do that. They get young girls and they kind of tame them. And control them. I remember once I was rebuilding a car. It was a Buick Riviera Classic. I don't remember what year it was, a 65 or 67 or something like that. And I needed some part for it, wheels or I don't know, something. And I saw an ad for what I needed, and I went out to see the guy, and he had a motorcycle shop. He didn't sell motorcycles. He sold motorcycle clothing and things they like to buy, things for motorcycles, but not the actual motorcycle. I think he would sell mirrors and saddlebags and seats and this and that. So I go in, the guy's, I don't know, 30, 35 years old. And his girlfriend was apparently working there. I think it was his girlfriend. Anyway, she was strikingly beautiful, and I doubt she was more than 16. I mean, this is what these guys do. They're like vampires. They find young girls that are attractive because that's all they care about. And they suck them in, and then when the girl starts to go away, they threaten violence. This guy, I think, was a Satan bot, and he probably didn't need to threaten violence, but that's what you get with these people. And in the motorcycle gangs, these men call the women that, not necessarily their wives, their girlfriends, they refer to them as their property. Oh yeah, they do. They do. Oh yeah. And a lot of these women are demented in the head, and they like this kind of a thing. But these are non-believers on both sides. When you have a believer and a non-believer in a marriage, you got oil and water, and it doesn't mix. It just doesn't work. But sadly, a lot of believers are married to unbelievers because nobody teaches them spiritual warfare. Nobody teaches them about the eye contact. So if they were dating, if somebody who listens to me is dating somebody and they realize they're doing the eye contact them, or they're doing like this or something like that, they say, "Whoa, let me get out of here," and then demon toss the person, and that would be the end of the relationship. They would get together with them again. But nobody teaches them spiritual warfare. Nobody teaches them what to look for. Nobody teaches them the church is wrong, and they go to the church, they're in sin, they don't understand it, they don't know it, then they're giving place to the devil, then the witchcraft and the sorcery works, and they wind up with the wrong person. I hope this helps. Let me see. 1 second. Okay. Let me check the chat, see if we've got any questions or prayer requests or anything like that going on. Do I think the temple will be split in two? I doubt that. I don't believe it all. I love Vietnamese food. I think it's great. I like a lot of different kinds of food. That's it. The custodian of the Temple Mound. That's the word. That's it. Custodian. Thank you. I'll explain the eye contact. The way the unclean spirits work on you is they look intensely in your eyes, and that's when they put the unclean, they start doing the witchcraft and the sorcery. And it can happen rather quickly. They will look funny in your eyes, and that's the ones that have an unclean spirit in them. They go through the eyes. They'll look at you rather intently, and it doesn't have to take a long time. You have to practice with this to learn it. But when you see it, now giving you the evil eye looks like they close. I think they close one eye. I forget. Yeah.
Sorry, bit of emergency. I've got to go to Revital's and feed. Her niece was injured in Gaza, and Revital's down there. They're trying to save her leg.
Oy vey. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to feed, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So they'll go sometimes like this. Or they'll close this eye and go like that, or like that, like this, or like that, or it might go like that. And that's the evil eye. Okay, some of the less, advanced students of Satan will go like this to you. That's another way of cursing you. I've seen the black coat Orthodox do that to me. They go like that. The Italian kids or the Sicilian kids in the Bronx used to call that the horns. Satan's horns, maybe, I don't know. Generally they'll stare in your eye. Okay? The way you could screw them up is with dark sunglasses. Mirrored sunglasses are the best. Okay? You could also say, in the event any person attempts to do evil eye contact of any sort aimed, directed at targeting me, I command any unclean spirit in that person to immediately depart from them the very instant such evil eye contact begins. And this command is in place for the next 20 years continuously. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now, I did this a lot of times, and once some girl tried it at me at a place where I wasn't working, I was a consultant to them. and she jolted. She tried doing it to me, and then the unclean spirit came out. You know, I was emphasizing come out immediately, and she got so scared she jolted. You know, when you toss them, you can tell them not to say anything to the person before or after they've been tossed, and no explaining what happened to them. That makes it somewhat more scary for the person that's been tossed because they don't know what happened. And you could also command the other unclean spirits to not give them any information about what happened for a year. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and that gets them screwed up. They can do witchcraft and sorcery with you on the telephone. They can do it with the internet if it's real time. I don't think they can do it with you with a chat where you're typing. I don't think so. They cannot do it with email. And they might be able to do it with a chat, but I don't think it works well. If you're talking to them with a picture and stuff, I've had them try to do it. They try to do it here. One time some guy said to me, turn your head a little bit, look forward. Okay, thank you. He was trying to do the eye contact on me and curse me or something. And then I threw the demons out of him. Laugh was on him. Okay, they think everybody is a moron that goes to their churches and is fooled by their churches and they can do whatever they want to them. Then they come along and they run up against people that listen to me that know spiritual warfare and they cave in. They don't know what happens. When you toss them for the first time, I'm telling you, their lives are no longer the same. You'll find they go to Prozac, medical marijuana, fentanyl, heroin, liquor, whatever. You know, they know the Bible is true after that. So their guilt is much worse. And they get very nervous and scared and confused, and the demons have to come and shore them up to keep them in the game. So the more people you demon toss, the more work Satan and the demons have, and you can make them weary, I think. Satan and the demons are not omnipresent. They can't communicate. They can't appear to multiple people at the same time. If they want to shore somebody up, they got to go over there and, you know, they usually will spend a few seconds with the person, and the person, see, they don't have faith, so they see and hear the unclean spirit, and that bolsters them up. Okay? They don't have faith in the unseen. They don't have faith. So the unclean spirits can appear to them and make themselves look other than what they really look like. Yeshua was able to do that walking with the people after his resurrection on the way, and then he changed his appearance to his real appearance while he was walking with them, and they were shocked. Wow, look, it was really Yeshua, you know. So I believe Satan, being a spirit, can do this too, and the people don't really see him as he is. I saw him as he is in a vision once, and he's pretty decrepit looking. But they don't see that. He disguises his appearance to them, I believe. You know, this type of thing. So the eye contact is key to them. I tell this story. Once I was sitting in a jacuzzi on a cruise ship, and I met this guy, and he recently retired. I think he was a lieutenant or a captain in the sheriff's department. And, you know, we got to talking, and he kept trying to look in my eyes, and I had a pair of mirrored Bolle sunglasses on sitting in the jacuzzi. And he kept trying to look at me, and it wasn't working. I could tell he was frustrated. So then we both got up to go out of the jacuzzi and grab a towel and go to our cabin. We didn't know each other. We were not cruising together. I just ran into the guy in the jacuzzi. So I get up and I take my glasses off for a second to see what happens. And boom, he snaps his head right at me with the eyes. I laughed, you know. Put the glasses back on, and I just demon tossed them. I waited for a while, and till he went and I went our separate ways on the boat. And I demon tossed them, that's all. That's it. That's how they operate. Okay, on a phone call, they can work on some sort of communication where you're live, like WhatsApp or something like that with the picture. They can really work. If you're just talking with a chat with typing, they can do stuff, but it's pretty less. And if you're on email, they can't do anything. Okay, they can't do anything on email. I mean, they can put a spell or something on the email and try to see if it'll work on you. If you're a believer, I doubt it. You got to give place to the devil. That's why Yeshua said, "The devil has nothing in me." Free Palestine. Somebody put some sort of gibberish up there. I don't know what they were saying. I'll just take the entry down. The evil eye is one thing. The eye contact is not the evil eye. That's just they stare intently in your eye. If you're asking me how do you know if you have an unclean spirit, you probably don't have an unclean spirit. Toss it out of yourself if you want to feel better about it. Okay, I've got some prayer requests and toss requests now, okay? Somebody sent in quite a few this time, so let me go through this. Other people sent them in too. RF, Robert Foxtrot, RF, or Romeo Foxtrot, RF. Tossed salad on RF. A person named Nancy, we have no last name, but I'm pretty sure Jehovah knows who this is. Tossed salad for this particular Nancy. LC, Lima Charlie, LC, Lima Charlie, LC. Pray for healing for LC. Healing for LC. MM, Mike, MM, Mike, toss salad, MM, toss. Somebody named Wayne, have no last name, for Wayne, healing. Jehovah will know who it is. Healing for this Wayne. Initials, JC, John Charlie, JC, John Charlie, JC. Prayer for healing. RC. Did I do that already? No. RC, Romeo Charlie. RC, Romeo Charlie. Healing for RC, Romeo Charlie. And there's a company called Navient. A company called Navient. Navient, something like that. Tossed salad for the owners and managers of this company called Navient. Okay, that was it. We had a lot today. Very unusual. But it's not a lot for it, Jehovah. All right. So I think I covered what I wanted to cover. If you're a believer and you have the Holy Spirit, you do not have an unclean spirit in you. Okay? Paul said he had a thorn in the flesh. Paul never said he had an unclean spirit inside his body. Okay? Don't let them lie to you about that. The two do not habitate together. It just doesn't happen. Okay? See if I left anything out of my notes. If Israel does get into a synagogue on the Temple Mound, America will turn against Israel, and this could bring about ruler against ruler in America. It's a possibility, because some of them would be the polity or the politics. The political sides in America may just be appalled if Biden turns against Israel using the military to control Israel or something. They may just blow their cork and it might start. So we got to watch and see. Is this really how it's going to develop? I can't guarantee that. I don't know, but it looks like it could be this way. Looks likely. I don't want to say yeah it is, because then it's like I'm giving you a prophecy, and I don't want to do that. But it could be what happens. And you're never going to see all the little twists and turns and the surprises and the little details. You could just kind of get a rough draft of it, you know. But it looks interesting enough to pay attention to. So we are expecting an attack on Iran against somebody the next day or two. I'm not expecting much of anything to happen from Hezbollah. And Iran's trying to stack the deck in Syria, and they're not doing such a great job. And the Houthis are not doing such a great job either, but they're still attacking shipping. And Hamas is basically just waiting to get whittled down to size in Gaza. And now Biden's people are saying the ball is in Hamas's court for the ceasefire. So that means to me the Biden administration is getting ready to make, to pin the tail of the donkey on Hamas and make them the bad guy on the ceasefire and hopefully turn against Hamas, but we'll see. All right, so I'm Moshe. Please pray for Chief again for better and faster, more healing for where he fell, so he gets healed up quicker. Pray for me and my wife Rivka for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and we don't have to go in the bomb shelters. And pray for our finances and our health, and pray for our birds and dogs to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for better videos, and pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. And please hit the thumbs up button. It takes you 2 seconds, and it helps with YouTube. And I'm at about 2.5 hours today. Not so bad. All right, so I hope you got something out of this. And remember what Yeshua told us, watch. So we'll keep watching and see what happens. I'll keep reporting to you from Israel what's going on. But Ben Gavir really did say it. Smotrich will back them. And they do have the red heifers that they claim are without any blemishes. So we wait and we watch. And I'm out. Thank you. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach.